In this brief talk, we concisely overview our recent ICLR paper where we developed scattering networks on the sphere for scalable and rotationally equivariant spherical CNNs. Data on the sphere arise in many applications. For example, the cosmic microwave background, the relic radiation from the Big Bang, is observed on the celestial sphere, while 360-degree photos and videos in virtual reality are also observed on the sphere. To transfer the remarkable success of deep learning to applications involving spherical data, we need deep learning models, such as CNNs, defined natively on the sphere. Just as planar CNNs encode translational equivariance, one of the key factors responsible for their success, spherical CNNs should encode rotational equivariance. While CNNs defined natively on the sphere have been developed, those frameworks that exhibit rotational equivariance are highly computationally demanding, prohibitively so for many practical applications. Spherical CNN constructions can be broadly classified into two categories. Discrete frameworks necessitate an approximate representation of spherical signals, losing the connection to the underlying continuous symmetries of the sphere, and thus cannot fully capture rotational equivariance. However, they can typically be computed efficiently. Continuous approaches constructed natively on the sphere, typically through spherical Fourier representations, do capture rotational equivariance, but are highly computationally demanding. To address this issue, we draw inspiration from our previous work of Cobb et al., which presents a generalized spherical CNN framework and advocates hybrid networks. In the current work, to scale spherical CNNs, we introduce an additional layer to be integrated into this hybrid approach that satisfies a number of important properties. Scattering networks meet all requirements, hence we construct scattering networks on the sphere. To construct scattering networks, we adopt spherical scale discretized wavelets, where the wavelets are constructed through a tiling of the spherical harmonic line. The wavelet transform is simply given by the spherical convolution of the signal and wavelet. We leverage fast algorithms to compute the spherical wavelet transform efficiently. With a suitable spherical wavelet transform in hand, the construction of the scattering transform on the sphere follows by direct analog of the original Euclidean construction proposed by Muller. The spherical scattering propagator for scale j is simply given by the spherical convolution of the wavelet at scale j, followed by taking the modulus. The modulus is adopted since it is non-expansive and preserves the stability of the wavelet representation, acting to mix signal content to low frequencies. The propagator can then be cascaded through multiple layers. Finally, scattering coefficients are computed by averaging through a spherical convolution with the scaling function. A scattering network is then simply a collection of scattering transforms for a number of paths. Since spherical scattering networks are built from a composition of operators that are rotationally equivariant, they are themselves rotationally equivariant. We prove that spherical scattering networks provide isometric invariance up to some scale and are stable to diffeomorphisms or distortions, resulting in a well-behaved representational space for machine learning problems. With spherical scattering networks to hand, we can now use them as an initial layer in spherical CNNs in order to scale to high-dimensional data. We embrace the approach of Cobb et al. That advocates hybrid networks. We prepend the typical networks considered in Cobb et al. With a spherical scattering network. Since the scattering network is designed and not learned, it may be considered as a pre-processing stage. We perform numerical experiments to validate the properties of our approach and apply it to illustrative problems. Using random test signals, we compute equivariance errors for scattering networks and demonstrate that errors are indeed small as expected. We apply the architecture shown above to the canonical problem of classifying MNIST digits on the sphere, where we also increase the resolution of images and decrease digit size in order to make the problem increasingly difficult. In all cases, including a scattering network improves classification accuracy significantly. We also consider a high-resolution classification problem to distinguish the anisotropies of the CMB between Gaussian and non-Gaussian scenarios. Using simulations, we again show that including a spherical scattering network improves classification performance considerably. To summarize, we have developed scattering networks on the sphere and advocated their use as an initial layer in hybrid spherical CNN architectures. Such an approach is scalable, allowing subsequent layers to operate at low resolution, is rotationally equivariant, provides an effective representational space due to its stability and invariance properties, and can also simply be considered as a pre-processing stage. This allows us to scale rotationally equivariant spherical CNNs to high-resolution data typical of many practical applications, such as in cosmology, virtual reality, and beyond.